let's talk about what you need in order to play Malifaux. Well, first off, in order to play Malifaux, you need some sort of flat playing area, a table, if you will. 3x3 is the standard size of a Malifaux game. For the purposes of this video, though, I am showing this on a much smaller scale so that we can see everything happening at the same time. So first, you will need a table or playing surface. You will need Malifaux miniatures, generally recommended to start off with a crew box, and this is one of the best buys in gaming. Crew boxes tend to run between $30 and $40, and that's enough to get you started playing a game. It's more than just maybe 50% of what you need. This is actually more, these crews are actually playable out of the box, and you can start playing in some of the smaller events just using your crew. That said, I would inform you that customizing your crew is going to require picking up some more blisters. So it's often recommended to start with a crew box and maybe a handful, somewhere between 1 and 3 blister packs or small boxes of miniatures to flesh out your crew. In addition to your crew models, the boxes, and anytime you purchase models, they will come with the stat cards that include the rules for your models. And one common thing to do is to protect these cards either by laminating them, which is what I do, and it allows you to mark on the cards as you're playing. So that's also one other thing that you could be doing. And finally, you're going to need a tape measure to measure your distances, and you're going to need a fate deck. One fate deck per player. Now the fate decks, the standard fate decks are actually the same. The cards and the artwork are the same. This is a 54 deck of playing cards with 4 different suits in them and 2 jokers. So we'll review what the jokers do, and really briefly I'll go over these suits here. So this is the tome suit, or most people call them books. This is a mask. This is a ram suit. And this is the crow suit, or some people call them feathers. Now, standard Malifaux decks all have this same artwork on the front. The only difference between this green deck and, say, this red deck is the color of the stripe on the back, so that you know, if you're playing another player, you know whose deck belongs to who. But otherwise, it's the same cards and the same amount of cards, and they should all function the same. In addition to your fate deck, your ruler, your miniatures, and your playing surface, you're also going to need a means of tracking your soul stones. So a lot of folks they might use plastic beads, or they might use like special crystals or something like that, which is fine, and it's kind of a cool way of tracking soul stones. One of the ways we track soul stones is we actually use our own. We have our own reference cards made. It's got our club info on one side, and back here you can see the little bullet marks where you can fill in the number of soul stones that your crew has remaining. One last comment on the cards. The standard different color, the 4-color, actually it's 5-color of fate decks are one option to go, but please note that there are a couple of other viable options. Now, you can use a standard deck of playing cards that you might get at the the supermarket or anything like that. However, you will have to translate the suits, the spades and the clubs and the diamonds and the hearts, over to masks, tomes, crows, and rams. So you could do that way if you wanted to stay on the ultra cheap. But your other options are, you can go with some of Weird's other decks, like the Puppet Deck or the Retrofit Deck, which are very popular options, both of these, mainly because these are plastic cards. They're not stiff card like these are, which will eventually start to break and wear. Some people will put sleeve protectors on their cards to keep them nice and intact, which is fine. However, if you like to shuffle the way I do, you may want to look at a plastic deck. So this is the Retrofit Deck. You can see it looks a lot like a standard deck of cards, but upon closer inspection you can see that these suits are in fact these suits from Malifaux. One of the other things that you would probably need for a game of Malifaux is counters, and I tend to carry a large and wide selection of counters. You will need some 30mm counters for things like your strategies, like these are treasure tokens that are 30mm that the game calls for. You might need some evidence counters. You can see I have some dynamite in there as well. And then the rest of these are sort of 30 or 50mm counters. But things like corpse counters, scrap counters, these are burning tokens. I use these as burning tokens. You will also need, for a lot of crews that use blasts and so forth, you will need 50mm counters. And a lot of times you can just buy, a pack of 3 of these, or I think they come in 3s or 4s from Weird. And they're fairly inexpensive. So counters are important to this game. As you continue to play, you will probably rack up a fair bit and variety of counters the way I have. Counters don't tend to be very expensive, however you can spring for some nice fancy acrylic counters, or you can or some of these like etched alderwood ones that I have. And then you can get some really weird counters. Like this one, I actually use this as a brilliance counter for when I'm playing Jacob Lynch. There's some really cool sources for counters, like burrowing. That's a good one. So anyway, I just wanted to show some counters as a means of another thing that you would probably want to pick up in order to play Malifaux. I forgot the most important thing you need when you are playing a game of Malifaux. That is the rule book. You absolutely need a rule book to play. Now, this is the rules manual, a $15 book. It's a very small book, but everything that you need to know for rules and encounters and so forth are in the rules manual. You can also buy the Malifaux 1.5, which is the current edition as the time of this recording, for $35, and that will also include crew rules and fluff for crews and masters, as well as the factions. Or you can even, if you're just trying out the game, you can download a free copy of the rules on the Weird website. Now that free copy won't include diagrams and it won't include certain encounters, but it's enough for you to start playing and get to know the rules.